her blessings, and she'll be taking us through the SRIMAD BHAGAVATAM discussed today. Mother, we can't thank you enough for being here every single time we call upon you. We're very much grateful to that. Hare Krishna.
Thank you very much.
So with that, further ado, I may put the verse on the screen and then you will take it over, Mother.
Okay.
Okay, Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Okay, it needs to come up. Yeah, there it goes. Okay, so we are reading from the SRIMAD BHAGAVATAM from the first canto, 19th chapter, and the verse is the 14th verse. So I will just chant the Sanskrit, say the synonyms, and then continue to the translation and the purport. And thank you for inviting me. It's actually very merciful for that of all of you to invite me in your association. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Tasyaiva me grasya paramaresho vyasakta chitasya greshu abhikshanam nirvedamulu dvija sapo rupo yatra prasakto bhayamasudate. The synonyms, word by word and translation. Tasya, his. Eva, certainly. Me, mine. Avasya, of the sinful. Para, transcendental. Avara, mundane. Isha, controller, the Supreme Lord. Vyasakta, overly attached. Tasya, of the mind. Griheshu, to family affairs. Abhikshanam, always. Nirveda mula, the source of detachment. Dvija shapa, cursing by the Brahmana. Urupa, form of. Yatra, whereupon. Prasakta, one who is effective. Bhayam, fearlessness. Ashu, very soon. Date, take place. Translation. The Supreme Personality of Godhead, the controller of both the transcendental and mundane worlds, has graciously overtaken me in the form of a Brahmana's curse. Due to my being too much attached to family life, the Lord, in order to save me, has appeared before me in such a way that only out of fear I will detach myself from the world. Very succinct statement. So the purport is very brief, 3 sentences. Maharaj Parikshit, although born in a family of great devotees, the Pandavas, and although securely trained in transcendental attachment for the association of the Lord, still found allurement of mundane family life so strong that he had to be detached by a plan of the Lord. Such direct action is taken by the Lord in the case of a special devotee. Maharaj Parikshit could understand this by the presence of the topmost transcendentalist in the universe. The Lord resides with his devotees, and therefore the presence of the great saints indicated the presence of the Lord. The king therefore welcomed the presence of the great rishis as a mark of favor of the Supreme Lord. Okay. So in the Srimad Bhagavatam, it's just like it's like a blueprint for life. And not just one sphere of life or for one particular type of persons. It's a blueprint for all mankind, but particularly it's a blueprint of life for transcendentalists. Excuse me, I don't know why. All morning I didn't cough, and now, sure enough, it starts when I want to speak. Just a second, I'll try to. So in this chapter, we're just 14 verses into it, but still there is some very powerful lessons that were being just imparted. One of them is repentance is natural for a good person, such as a leader. And such repentance delivers a devotee from all kinds of sins accidentally committed. Very important point there. Accidentally committed. Devotees are naturally faultless, and accidental sins committed by a devotee are sincerely regretted. By the grace of the Lord, all sins unwillingly committed by a devotee are burnt in the fire of repentance. So this is a very important point to be considered, and it definitely points to the good character and behavior of Maharaj Parikshit. Accidental, unwilling, not repeated, not contemplated. It's not like Maharaj Parikshit went in to the hermitage of the sage with a plan to offend him. It was just a thirsty and hungry man. And not only that, once he realized the extent, and somebody shut off your mic? Thank you. Once he realized the extent of his accidental transgression, he was really feeling very bad about his behavior. And he wasn't making up any excuses for his behavior, and neither did he repeat it. This is very important. One of the verses from Bhagavad Gita 9:30 is quite often, I think you all know that verse, is quite often thrown out when there is a person who has committed abominable activities. Now, one may unwittingly, unwantingly commit an abominable activity, but the benchmark is, was it contemplated? Was it premeditated? Just like when you go to court, let's say you're charged with murder. So they're going to want to know, was this premeditated? Was it planned? And has the person murdered before? And did they murder since that? They want to know. Because according to the degree of intention, one will be sentenced. One will be held accountable. So what happens is devotees get really into this 9:30, whereby, they take it to very loosely that, okay, you do something, but still, if you engage in devotional service, it doesn't matter. You're still a saintly person. Externally, that is being said, but if you dive into that verse a little deeper, you'll understand that's not a free pass to behave in a sinful manner. What is this here? It's the second year thing is covering up my thing. So it can definitely be that a person does something abominable. And if they show great remorse, if they're willing to, as we say nowadays, take responsibility for their actions. In other words, they don't do the blame game. Oh, it's this, oh, it's that. oh, my father was this to me when I was a kid. My mother was that to me when I was a kid. I was this, I was that. They don't do the blame game. I behaved wrongly and I'm terribly sorry. Please tell me, what can I do to atone? This is the proper behavior to be considered saintly after behaving in an unsaintly manner. Now, if you do something, so like this Maharaj Pariksit, if he continued to behave abominably, insulting the sage, maybe finds another dead snake and throws it at him. No, that is not the proper behavior. That is not repentance. But Maharaj Pariksit, he was a genuinely saintly person, and so was the sage, a genuinely saintly person. He just wasn't some guy dressed up in some, few pieces of cloth out in the forest. He was a genuine sage with all good qualities that he exhibited. So he did not become angry with Maharaj Pariksit. And you could say in one way, there was a meeting of minds. It's a saying, good minds think alike. They were devotees of the Lord, and they both knew the proper behavior. So it's by the grace of the Lord that unwitting, unintentional, spur of the moment activities not contemplated are going to be burnt in the fire of repentance. I'm so sorry, Krishna. Please help me get out of this miserable situation that I alone have put myself into. And Maharaj Pariksit, he was desiring that the imminent calamity to fall upon him. He wanted to take full responsibility. He didn't want what was ever, he didn't want his family members to have to suffer as a result of his misbehavior. And that's generally what happens, that the family members are going to suffer. Just right now, right before this call, I got off the phone with a devotee whose brother passed untimely on the 13th of this month, last Friday. Untimely in that unintentionally, but still, he took some type of drugs. What's the word they use nowadays? Recreational drugs. They weren't drugs. I mean, I take some drugs every day, but they are prescribed drugs to treat a particular medical situation. But these type of drugs were the type of drugs people take to, quote unquote, get high, or, that it was not necessary. And he had come from America to the country where his mother lived to visit her right after the new year. And unwittingly, unintentionally, he took too much and he died in his mother's house. You can imagine the effect on the family members, and particularly the mother, who was the one that found his lifeless body, particularly on the wife, who had to come all the way from America with their 2 young children, and his sister and others. They're all affected by this. But Maharaj Pariksit didn't want his family members to be affected by his misbehavior. He wanted only to fall on him alone. And it's explained that by personally suffering from a result of your misbehavior, one can be restrained from committing future sins. In other words, you do something and it's wrong, but if you get a free pass, it's too easy. And then you're thinking, hey, I got away with that. Not so bad. Hey, let me try this. So that's not good. And that was not the mentality of Maharaj Pariksit. And at the same time, the sin which he had committed, it would be counteracted so his descendants would not suffer. So this is the way to counteract generational trauma. Nowadays, this is a big topic of discussion among devotees, generational trauma. And it's passed on from lifetime to lifetime. It's being discussed in many ways among devotees nowadays, and there's endless workshops and different ways of dealing with it. But here we're finding out how it can be discussed and how to counteract it by the example of Maharaj Pariksit. It's not a new thing, you know. A lot of times people, this is a new thing. It's not new at all. So family members of a devotee, they do share the effect of on the converse side, on the better side. The family members of a devotee share the effect of a devotee's service unto the Lord. And examples are like how Maharaj Prahlad, he saved his demoniac father by his personal devotional service. This really happened. It wasn't fiction. Even Christ, he tried to help his followers by accepting to be nailed on the cross and appearing to have died. He told them that he had died for their sins. And Prabhupada commented, and they go on sinning anyway. But we have the same mentality, the lack of spiritual desire and determination among devotees, that we get some relief, particularly, you know, when we first joined, it's just like, wow, this is amazing. And it's so easy in one way. We'll give up all this nonsense activities we've been involved in. But if we're not spiritually strong, we don't develop strong determination, we'll be like the Christians and go on sinning anyway, whether grossly or subtly. And then we kind of wonder, why is it I've lost my taste? Where did my taste go? So we want to leave behind a good legacy, not because we're desiring to be remembered in a particularly wonderful way, but we want our previous and present and family members in the future to share in the effects of our devotional service to the Lord. So Srila Prabhupada, who is our family member, he has set us up in such a wonderful way that we are able to actually not only personally benefit, but benefit our family, past, present, and future. And in this case, what I just told you about, the devotee's brother, he was only 40. She was a couple years older than him, a few years older. But she had many times engaged him in devotional service, to the extent he even spent some time living in the Krishna house. He moved near one temple in America and spent a number of years living next to this temple. He did chant Hare Krishna. He did honor Krishna Prasad. So everything like that came from as a result of his association with the sister. So the family members have every opportunity, we as family members have every opportunity to share the effects of our service with our family members. Just as Srila Prabhupada, our superhero father, our spiritual father, grandfather, etc., he has set us up for the perfect life. And it's not just our own, it's there to be shared with our relatives and ancestors. So when wealth and strength are not engaged in the advancement of Brahminical culture, God consciousness, and cow protection, the state, Prabhupada puts this in one of the purport, when wealth and strength are not engaged in Brahminical culture, not engaged in God consciousness or cow protection, the state and the home are surely doomed by providence. That's a very bold, strong statement. Sometimes people become a little disturbed by such strong statements. It makes them uncomfortable. We should be feeling uncomfortable because it means we need to do a little bit more work, that we're not quite to the mark yet. If we do really want peace and prosperity, just like in the 60s and maybe today, people were like demonstrating, we want peace, we want peace and love. If we do want that, if we want peace, love, prosperity in the world, we should take lessons from Maharaj Pariksit and from this statement where every state and home must endeavor to advance the cause of Brahminical culture for self-purification, for God consciousness, for self-realization, cow protection. By protecting the cows, we get sufficient milk and the best food to continue a perfect civilization. Of course, out of milk, ahimsa, we know it's a new term for milk, ahimsa milk. It means milk that is coming from protected cows, like in our Gita Nagari farm. There's ahimsa milk. In New Vrindavan, there's ahimsa milk. It means the cows in these places will never, ever be killed. They'll be allowed to live their life out peacefully, even if they're not giving milk, even if they're just, their only business is to eat and sleep, but that's okay. Somehow by hook or by crook, milk must be procured. It must be consumed and offered to the deities. And of course, ahimsa is best, but if it's not possible, still getting sufficient milk is necessary to continue a perfect civilization. Just like every endeavor is, a fire. So there's some imperfection in every endeavor. Example, by fire, you want a fire, there's some smoke. So this whole issue with the milk, we know what Prabhupada wanted, we know what he intended, but still, if it's not possible, giving up milk is not the best answer. The best answer is to try our best to create a situation, an environment where we can actually ourselves promote and produce ahimsa milk, ahimsa meaning milk that from the cows that will never be killed. One time we had a cow in New Vrindavan. She was a young one. She hadn't had a calf yet. And she fell and injured herself. Well, we're not even sure how she injured herself, but it was a bad injury. So the vet comes and he goes, well, only thing I can suggest is I'll put her down. And which, whoa, put her down means it's going to kill her. He goes, we don't have any facility for such an injury here. I said, well, it's not going to happen. And so she was with great endeavor taken all the way to Columbus, Ohio. And in Columbus, Ohio, there's a big university right across the street from our temple there, actually. And they have a world-renowned veterinarian program. So as part of that program, they have this special section where they treat large injured animals. So generally, it's going to be like expensive racehorses. People from all over the world, all the way from Saudi Arabia, they'll fly an injured racehorse to this facility in Columbus, Ohio, to save their animal. So we brought our little cow there. New Vrindavan has a lot of mud, so this cow was full of mud. And I remember going there, and here's these beautiful, and even the other cows that were brought there, they were like these prize-winning cows. So everything was super clean. The facility was super clean. The animals were super clean. And we come in with our muddy, beat-up van and the trailer for carrying the cow, and had seen better days. And out came her cow. I was trying to remember her name. I can't remember her name. It comes out, and she's like full of mud all over. And nonetheless, and it cost like thousands of dollars, but she was treated and cared for. And then they were successful, and she was brought back to New Vrindavan. But it was determined maybe it wouldn't be a good idea that she has a calf, because it could be a bit rough, the process of getting pregnant, and then calves can be a little rough. So this cow is just living out her best life, eating, just eating what nice grass, nice hay, and she'll never be slaughtered. She has no fear in life. So this is ahimsa. The real happiness is achieved by spiritual existence, or cessation from the repetition of birth and death. And one can stop the repetition of birth and death only by going back to Godhead. So in the material world, even by obtaining the topmost planet in the material world, Brahmaloka is the topmost, still you're not going to get free from the conditions of repeated birth and death. You may be there for thousands and years. Even the conception of heaven, the Christian conception of heaven, is not free from birth and death, although you have a really long opportunity for a really long life and a life of enjoyment. Maharaj Prickett, he could understand that the cursing of that Brahmana boy, even though it was not wise, he understood it was a blessing on him. Because why? It was going to detach him from worldly affairs, both the political and social, what to speak of family. And both the king and Shanaka Rishi was a mystic, Maharaj Prickett was a devotee. So there was no difference between them in self-realization. And neither one of them was afraid of meeting death. But Maharaj Prickett very wisely determined he had to prepare for this imminent death. And he had to find out the definite way to go back to Godhead. So he didn't have a bucket list. Nowadays, people are dying. They have these Make-A-Wish Foundation. So the person's going to die and they'll like fulfill whatever their dying wish is. But it's never anything about spiritual life. It's all like, well, I want to go to Disney World. I want to see that. I want to eat that. Just like a condemned prisoner, it's going to be killed, right? It's a sentence. He's sentenced to die. What do you want to eat for your last meal? And so, I mean, it's ridiculous. And there's a fellow, he's going to be, actually, I think it already happened. He's going to be, put to death. So he didn't want a last meal. That was smart. He wanted somebody, his spiritual advisor, to be with him at the time of death. But he was being denied that, or I forget the reason. We should be so prepared because at the time of death, Prabhupada explains, everybody is going to fly their own plane. It's very nice to have, someone there to help you, but no one can help you at the time of death. We all have to be prepared at that moment. This human life is a chance to prepare ourselves for going back to Godhead, to get rid of the material existence, to get rid of the repetition of birth and death. And actually, Prabhupada explained that one of the purports that the system of Varnashram Dharma, that every man and woman is being trained for this purpose. Like in other words, the system, the real point of Varnashram Dharma, it's also known as Sanatana Dharma, our eternal occupation, to prepare one for going back to Godhead. So Prabhupada also said that the state must employ revenue to advance these items and to educate the population to prepare for death. This is real governance, and this is real welfare. So, this generally at this last stage of life, one is very confused, can be very confused. I remember one person who was a devotee's mother, but she came to live in New Vrindavan, but she didn't fully embrace the practice, but favorable, encouraging. And suddenly she was being faced with death through various circumstances. And I went to see her with a young devotee who was, who herself is now gone, but this young devotee was a beautiful singer. So I went to see this lady, and she looks up, she goes, I'm so confused. But I was shocked that that's all she could say. She didn't say anything. I'm so confused. She'd been living in New Vrindavan. She'd been chanting and hearing the mantra. She had eaten prasadam. But she was confused. It was the time of death. She knew it was the time of death, and she was confused. So I asked her, would you like Arti, though, as a devotee? Would you like her to chant? Would you like her to sing something? And she agreed, yes, I would like to hear. So yeah, Arti sang very sweetly to her, but I was feeling so sad to see this. So it was a good lesson. It's just not automatic at the time of death that you're going to switch over and be fully prepared. We have to prepare before death, and at the time of death, if we've been taking those precautions, we will be prepared. So here's this great emperor of the world, Maharaj Pariksit, and he's just pulling out the stops. Forget the sense gratification, forget the family, forget the palace, forget all of it. And he's asking, what should I do? What should I do? And how should I do it? And then all these wonderful, amazing, saintly persons had come to gather. And this was interesting because how did they find out about this? How did they know? They didn't have email. They didn't have telephones even. They didn't have the internet. How did these great saintly people know? And my only conclusion is that there's a higher level of communication, and they all wanted to be there at this time, to be with this person. On the external, they were coming to take a bath in the river, but no, they were coming to be with Maharaj Pariksit and to hear along with him. They could, because they understood that the Bhagavatam would be spoken by Sukadeva Goswami, so they all wanted to take advantage of this occasion. Just like at the Kumbh Mela, a big event that happens January, February, every year. So I went with Srila Prabhupada along with many other devotees for our first time. Now the ISKCON has a big presence there, but at that time there were just a little group of people, and we were stuck in a fairly unfavorable spot. And the devotees, being kind of innocent at the time, they got cheated like anything. On the big tent that we had rented was full of holes and really shabby. But never mind, we were there to offer Harinam Sankirtan, to take advantage of this opportunity to present the Yuga Dharma. And while we were there, many people would come. They would make their way. They heard about us. And it wasn't just us, Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada was there. That's what made it special. So although we were at the Triveni, the confluence of the Ganga, Yamuna, and the Saraswati, what was making this event very special was the presence of the saintly people. And of all the saintly people, Srila Prabhupada was himself most saintly, that even the other saintly people were coming to see Srila Prabhupada. And one time, this person came, and it was hard to tell, what he was exactly, because it was freezing cold, by the way, very cold. And people would come anyway to take bath in the Triveni at that time. And this saintly person came, but he was looking very, you could say, disheveled and unkempt. So after he left, Prabhupada told us in a very just offhand casual way, oh yeah, he was like 500 years old and he came here through the rivers. Like, we came on a train, but some of these saintly people would enter into the rivers, either the Ganga, the Yamuna, generally the Ganges, coming down from the Himalayas, and then emerge from the river. How they did that? Great yogis. We could hardly even dip our toes in there, to take a bath. It was so cold. But even these people, they wanted to take the darshan of Srila Prabhupada. And one of the other lessons there that's really important is that generally at the last stage of one's life, one should bow their head to the ground. And Prabhupada commented and asked forgiveness, not just to make a random, obeisances, but Prabhupada commented, this is adopted by every sensible man in order to be excused of any offenses before departure. So Maharaj Pariksit did that, and he was imploring the goodwill from everyone to go back home, back to Godhead. And even Srila Prabhupada, at the end of his life, he also begged forgiveness from his brothers or anyone else he might have offended in the course of his strong preaching. And another really super important lesson is that any decision, however important. Any decision one has to make, it should be confirmed by some authority. In other words, we should go to a more advanced devotee, like a brahmana or a person who is known to be advanced by their actions and their behavior, and get confirmation. Is this what I should be doing? Is this how I should do it? And by doing that, they may give you some adjustments or some lessons, but this makes the matter perfect. And in the days of Maharaj Pariksit, all those monarchs who ruled the earth, Prabhupada described, they weren't irresponsible dictators. They were rulers of the entire planet in some cases, but they weren't irresponsible dictators because they followed this system of authoritative decisions by taking advice from the saints and the sages and the brahmanas, which is in line with the Vedic injunctions. And one thing is they could see Maharaj Pariksit, he had a beautiful kingdom, he had beautiful, he was powerful like anything, beautiful kingdom, so much wealth, so much followers, you could say, people, whatever he said, they would do it. But he wasn't a cheap despot. He was concerned about the welfare, the real welfare, the spiritual welfare of his subjects. And by becoming advanced in knowledge of spiritual realization, the transcendentalists know. So Maharaj Pariksit understood that even though this so-called beautiful material world, my so-called beautiful palace wives' lives, and except it's only a shadowy reflection of the reality of the kingdom of God. So Maharaj Pariksit felt proud that he happened to be the descendant of great devotees. And Prabhupada points out the pride for the devotee, this type of pride, it's not equal to the puffed up sense of vanity for material prosperity. It's not material pride. Material pride is false, whereas being proud of being part of a family of devotees, this is reality. So just like we're proud to be part of Lord Chaitanya's army under the most capable general, Srila Prabhupada, that type of pride is to our benefit. If we become proud of a so-called position we may have, that kind of pride will doom us. I wanted to mention also a beautiful prayer by the exalted Queen Kunti in the first canto, but 8th chapter. Now, everybody knows about Queen Kunti asking, may these calamities happen time and time again. That's probably the one everybody thinks of first when they remember Kunti. But actually, verse 41 is very applicable to the situation here with Maharaj Pariksit, who was trying to divest himself of the attachment to family and so many other things. And she's begging here for the Lord, O Lord of the universe, please cut the ties of family affection to my kinsmen, the Pandavas and the Vrishnis. And Prabhupada comments in the purport how a pure devotee of the Lord is ashamed to ask anything in self-interest from the Lord. But sometimes householders are obliged to ask favors from the Lord due to being bound by the ties of family affection. So Queen Kunti, she was conscious of this fact. Therefore, she's praying to the Lord, cut off this chindi, cut off the affectionate ties from her own kinsmen. The Pandavas were her own sons, and the Vrishnis were the members on her paternal side. And Krishna was equally related to both families. So both families required the Lord's help because both were dependent devotees on the Lord. And Kunti, she wanted Sri Krishna to remain with her sons, the Pandavas, but by this, her paternal house would be bereft. So it was a very perplexing thing, and it was troubling her mind. So she just prayed, please cut off the affectionate family ties. And a pure devotee cuts the affectionate family ties, but they're limited ties of affection. These family affectionate limited ties of affection. And in doing so, it broadens the activities of devotional service for forgotten souls. So the typical example is the band of the 6 Goswamis who followed the path of Lord Chaitanya. All of them belong to enlightened and culture-rich families of the higher level. But for the benefit of the mass of population, they left their comfortable homes and they became mendicants. So to cut the affectionate family ties means to broaden the field of activities. So here we have wonderful examples in our own lineage. Of course, we see Sukadev Goswami. He was born after 16 years in the room and just got up and walked away. His father was calling, my dear son, and he just walked. He said only the trees were echoing in response. Srila Prabhupada, he cut off the ties of family in order to follow the orders of his spiritual master. It wasn't hard-hearted. It wasn't out of ego. It was broadening the ties of affection, because in doing so, you would be able to actually benefit the world. She adored Kunti and addressed the Lord as the Lord of the universe, or the Lord of the universal mind. And that was indicating his all-powerful ability to cut that hard knot of family affection. So sometimes it is experienced that the Lord, out of his special affinity towards a weak devotee, weak meaning they're devotees, they can be pure devotees, but there's this weakness towards family affection. So it's experienced the Lord, out of his special affinity towards such a devotee, he cuts that family affection by force of circumstances arranged by his all-powerful energy. And in doing this, he causes the devotee to become completely dependent on him, and thus clears the path for his going back to Godhead. So Prabhupada, many times he indicated that he had this considered a special mercy, a special favor of the Lord. Devotees are actually soft-hearted. We're not stones. But the difference in affection is that the family affection is limited. And when one is fully engaged in love of God, it encompasses each and every living entity. Prabhupada said, including the trees. So this is a greater degree of affection. And that type of affection is the broader form of affection. Just like you may love your child, but what about the child next door and the child across the street? Okay, they're nice kids, but my kid. So this is limited affection, whereas one who is fully God conscious, he will love all of the children, and all living entities, each and every living entity. People are planning, we're trying to be very comfortable in this material existence, but what is the result of this so-called comfort? Is becoming more confused, being confused and failing. Prabhupada said the peace movement, the United States movement, everything is a failure. Why? Because these miseries of material existence, they can't be stopped by any material means. One has to take shelter of spiritual means. Just like the blazing fire in the forest has to wait for the cloud in the sky to shower rain. And similarly, one has to wait for the merciful cloud of the spiritual master. This is, Chanaya Karuna Ganavanatam Praptasya Kalyana Gunarnavasya Bandeguro Sri Sharanarabindam. So actually, Prabhupada was commenting on this. The spiritual master is not self-made. That spiritual master is coming, bona fide spiritual master is coming from the line of spiritual authority, and he receives his power, his ability from that authority. Otherwise, Prabhupada said it's useless. It's not that one can become a spiritual master overnight. He has to take that power from his spiritual master. And therefore, that is this praptasya. Praptasya means one who has obtained, one who has got the merciful blessing of a spiritual master. So the mind has to be kept in a healthy condition, the samgya. One who dies with full sense, remember Krishna, oh, he's successful. Yeah, and Prabhupada gave this Bengali saying, Bhajanakara Sadanakara Murti Yanrahoy. That means you may be a great devotee, that's all right, but you'll be tested at the time of death, how to remember Krishna. That will be the great test. And at the time of death, if we forget, oh, no Krishna, no Krishna. So artificial practice won't help us. But still, there may be a situation where a devotee at the time of death may not be able to remember Krishna. So what happens there? Prabhupada answered that question. Oh, do you think Krishna is not a grateful man? No, Krishna is there. He's there with the devotee. But we have to want Krishna. We have to practice. And if for some reason we are somehow unable to remember, Krishna will be there for us anyway, because he's not an ungrateful person. And then Prabhupada was describing how devotees of Krishna are the most exalted persons on this planet, better than kings, all of them. This was in a letter, better than kings, all of them. So we should always remember that. And like the bumblebee, always look for the nectar, are the best qualities of a person. Not like the utopians who are just like flies and they always go to open sores, or they find faults in persons because they can't find utopia, or because they cannot find anyone without faults. They want to become void. And they think this utopia is just like to become devoid of personality. But he says, so if there's sometimes slight disagreements between devotees, it is not due to impersonalism. It's because they are persons. Because we're persons, sometimes disagreements may be there, but they shouldn't be taken seriously. The devotees are always pessimistic about the material world, but optimistic about spiritual life. So in this way, we should consider that anyone engaged in Krishna's service is the best person. And Maharaj Prithat was putting himself in the position of being a best person by preparing to hear about the way of God consciousness in his last days. Now, it may be sometimes some concern that, just like I gave the example, this person, he didn't plan on dying at that moment, but it happened. Even among devotees, there's been devotees who appeared to suddenly depart without, like, how could that happen? How could that happen? Car accident in the case of Tamal Krishna. But Prabhupada in a purport in the Gita 8:24, for the pure devotee in Krishna consciousness, there's no fear of returning, whether he leaves the body at an inauspicious or auspicious moment, by accident or by arrangement. No fear of returning. Prabhupada told Tamal Krishna in Bombay, if anyone sacrifices sense gratification by giving his life for spreading Krishna consciousness, at his time of death, Lord Chaitanya will personally come and cover any of his inadequacies and take him back to Godhead. So we're all of us, just in our humble attempt to propagate Krishna consciousness, in the best position we could be. But still we have to, shouldn't take it for granted. We have to make our endeavors. And in our humble attempt to propagate Krishna consciousness movement all over the world, the only remedy at this time, this Krishna consciousness movement is providing the only remedy that can bring about a peaceful and happy life. And we can't be happy without the mercy of the Supreme Lord. So if we keep displeasing our Supreme Father, we'll never be happy within this material world or in an upper or lower planetary system. So we should take very seriously the opportunity that we've been given by Srila Prabhupada He gave this in a letter to Guru Das. He mentions a Bengali proverb. So fruits like chestnuts and pomegranates or similar other valuable fruits and nuts, they take some time to fructify. It's not like you plant the seed and poof, there it is. It takes some time. So then he said, any good thing that comes in our possession after a hard struggle and endeavor. So Krishna consciousness is the greatest of all good fruits. So it may take some time to fructify. We must therefore have necessary endurance and enthusiasm to get the result. We should never be disappointed when things are presented in a reversed order. He said, anyway, your hard, honest labor is now coming to be fructified. Always depend on Krishna and go on working with enthusiasm, patience, and conviction. So those are the three things we want to hang on to: working for Krishna, depending on Krishna, working hard with enthusiasm, patience, and conviction, and follow the wonderful example of Maharaj Pariksit. So that is what I have to mention today. Anybody wants to add, subtract, or make some comments to before we end?
Thank you so much, Mother, for the class. Well, your mother, so the way you spoke, the way I took it was a mother giving the urgent advice to her child. And we can't thank you enough for the kind advice. And we pray and hope that we can take this advice and then put it into practice.
Yes, urgent. Srila Prabhupada, he was giving us Krishna consciousness along in a sense of urgency.
Yes.
It wasn't just like, here's something we'll do later. No, we'll do it now. He wrote in a letter to me, it is possible. In a letter to me, he wrote, it is possible to finish up in this lifetime, so why not do it?
Yeah.
But if we don't, we shouldn't be morose. We shouldn't be intimidated, oh, I can't make it. No, just keep on going.
Yeah. Thank you so much. So dear devotees, if anyone has a question, realization, comments you want to share, you may do that using the hand emoji or raising your physical hand. Mother, there was a statement Srila Prabhupada made in his purport, which is quite striking to me, because Srila Prabhupada was saying in the purport that the Lord was so merciful to Maharaj Pariksit that he had to forcibly detach Maharaj Pariksit from his material attachments.
Yes.
Now,
which is why I was giving that verse from Queen Kunti.
Yeah.
That's not, you know.
Well, since some of us, okay, let me just use myself. Since somebody as myself is not a very dear devotee of the Lord, and he may not forcibly cut my material attachments away from me, where is my hope? That's my question.
Yeah.
Hare Krishna.
At the time of, just like Maharaj Pariksit, at the time of death, it's all going to go. The difference between us and him is that he took it seriously. We're not, you know, our unfortunate situation is we've been given all this valuable knowledge. But just like a foolish child being given a valuable gemstone and he's like tossing it here and there in the street. You know, we're not taking it seriously enough yet. So the thing we can do is to develop our determination, and the enthusiasm is needed, and then the patience.
Yeah.
These are the important ingredients. Prabhupada said, I think I mentioned this almost every lecture because it's so true. He says, without anyone, enthusiasm, determination, and patience, if anyone is missing, then you can't succeed. So most of us are lacking a little in our determination. We have it for a moment. Okay, today I'm going to chant not just chant 16 rounds, 16 good rounds. And we're not even through the first mantra, Hare Krishna and Rama, and already our mind just travels out the door. So we know we have these, but still Krishna sees that we're trying, and we can't give up. We just can't give up. Thinking, oh, I can't make it. Look at this. That is Maya's little smiling trick.
Yeah.
To deviate us.
Thank you so much, Mother. Anyone else with a question or comment? Prabhuji, Mataji? Yeah, I was just listening to one of Srila Prabhupada's memories. I love Srila Prabhupada's memories. And His Grace Shrutakirti Prabhu was speaking. And he was saying that Srila Prabhupada said that when our minds are getting disturbed, especially when we are chanting, then we should chant very loudly. Like Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. Yes. And then the mind will check itself. So I said to myself, okay, I'll try practicing that.
Yeah, well, that's a fact. When you chant out loud, you push away some of the interference of the mind. Yeah. Like at one point in New Vrindavan, they were doing this is like a number of years ago, like in the 90s, 89, 90. So they were doing this silent chanting, which you can do, but it just allows for more latitude for the mind to interfere. And then one time somebody took a video and, it was more, first they started out. And then they had the video had sound, and I won't out the person, but then you heard the snoring, so it's to our benefit to chant out loud. And not only do we benefit, but those living entities around us, including the insects, if you're, or if you're outside, the trees, the grass, the creepers. That's why these people, they claim to be meditating, but who knows what they're meditating on? But it's without consideration for other living entities. It's just, okay, you can maybe benefit. In the same way, we should be hoping to benefit others besides ourselves. This is a symptom of a devotee, concern for others.
Thank you so much, Madam.
There's somebody there with a hand.
Yeah, Ganga Prasad Prabhu, please unmute.
Hare Krishna Mata, Dandava
Hare
Pranam.
Krishna, Hare Krishna.
Thank you very much. Your sessions are always enlightening. You keep us in Prabhupada's era. Thank you very much. In the course of your lecture, you mentioned about higher communication. When you asked, how did the sages know about this?
Yeah.
And what struck my mind is, in our own time now, how do we, or what do we practice to assess that higher communication?
Well, our goal is not to access higher communication. Our goal is to please Krishna, and then Krishna, when he's pleased, he'll make whatever arrangement is necessary for us, and it could include that. But I just mentioned that because, you might have crossed your mind. How did they know? How did they know to get there? So, I mean, they knew. So obviously there was a level of higher communication going on. But that's not, our specific goal. I mean, like I mentioned, we're lucky if we can just get through one mantra flawlessly. And by chanting perfectly, we will achieve higher communication because we'll be linked with Krishna. We'll be communicating with Krishna. that's the highest level of communication.
Thank you, Ma.
Hare Krishna. Thank you so much, Ganga Prashad Prabhu, for that question. Since we have Mother Brajalila and Kavira, I don't know, maybe we have two hands from two people up. Please, you may unmute.
Hare Krishna, Malati Prabhu, Haribol. We were listening on YouTube. And so at a point when there was for questions, I thought, okay, well, let me try to get on Zoom to see if we can ask a question. So we just really want to thank you, first of all, because yeah, there's some problems with the computer. I'm not sure what this is, but we want to thank you because I know that you make a point of coming to this forum. I know you make a sacrifice that you're always, present for the devotees in West Africa. And that's so much mercy from Srila Prabhupada, that comes from Srila Prabhupada. So thank you for that. Thank you. I wanted to ask you about what you're sharing in terms of Srila Prabhupada asking us to take Krishna consciousness seriously. That is urgent. That is something that it's not like a theory. It's a practice to practice. And yet I can say in my own case, although I understand the theory, and I even get some understanding of the practical that yes, I know this body can give out at any time, but yet I don't know if I'm really ready for that.
Yeah, well,
so
I think that is where most of us are standing. Even when we get a shockingly vivid experience, I'm like, oh my God, yeah, and then we just slack off, whether it's subtly or otherwise. But that again, we all have to fly our own plane, so it's our own determination. That's up to us. We have so many examples around us, presently and in the past, that it's up to us to take the determination.
I was wondering if when Srila Prabhupada was leaving his body, firstly, I want to ask, were you there when he was leaving his body?
I could not, I could have been there. I did not want, I could not have, I can't even look at that video by Yadubar to this day. It's like not where I want. So no, I wasn't there. I was in France, and Prabhupada, as you know, had gone to England. The next stop was supposed to be Paris. And because he had in the past recovered against all odds, we were not even considering that he wouldn't recover this time. We were getting ready for his return to France. On the day of his departure, I had spent the entire day with another devotee, Gunamai, driving all over Paris, looking for a chair that could be put into the bathtub in this place, in this situation. It was like a sunken tub, so that he could take his bath. We were so immature and naive. We didn't know there was such a thing as orthopedic appliances. In other words, they have things like that. So we were going to regular furniture stores, and in our broken, non-existent French, trying to explain to them we needed a chair you can put in a bathtub so you could pour, and it had to have arms on it, and so the person could be bathed. And we came back without such a chair, and we were feeling just so like defeated, And we walked in the door of the temple on Rue La Soeur, which was in the 16th arrondissement, a very, very posh area in France, just down the street from Arc de Triomphe. I remember opening that door, walking in, phone rang. Phone was in the entry. And I suddenly, I didn't want to pick that phone up. I knew it was not going to be good news. So I turned to Guna, you take that. And that was the news. I remember walking in that temple room, and who we call the devotees, and we're just sitting there in utmost depression, trying to chant because what else could we do? And it was the probably the saddest kirtan, the saddest attempt. We were trying to chant. And I remember the door opens up and our GBC walks in. And he was, we didn't have the cell phones in this day, so he didn't know because he was coming back from the farm. And he walks in expecting everybody, there he is. And we're just chanting. It was like a pathetic kirtan. And he realized something wasn't right, and somebody took him and told him what had happened. So that was the situation there. We didn't go because we were getting ready for him to come back. We fully expected him to come back. Some people criticize devotees who didn't go. I don't know about others, but for us, we were there getting ready for him to come back.
Thank you for sharing that.
In the sixth camp, in the sixth chapter, there's that lessons by Narada Muni's giving instructions on bhakti. And in the 31st verse, he says, "It is personally experienced by me." So right then and there, that's such a powerful opener. Personally experienced by me. Those who are always full of cares and anxieties due to desiring contact with the senses and their objects. So that's most of our, but they can cross over the ocean in essence in a most suitable boat. And that most suitable boat is the constant chanting of the transcendental activities of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So we all want a personal experience. And that personal experience is being given to us by the acharyas, previous acharyas, and by Srila Prabhupada, and by our own, members in our own time, who have shown us by their example, their personal experience. And it consists of that constant chanting of the transcendental activities of the personality of Godhead. We just have to become determined to make that experience. We can't make their experience our experience, but we can have that personal experience if we take to the constant chanting.
Yeah, I could ask you so much about that. I see though that Hari Chakra and Govinda are on here, their hands are up, so I'll let them ask their questions. Thank you.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, thank you so much. So we have two hands up, but I'm pleading with the devotees.
I hope Govinda Das, who has his hand up and he looks like he's in a car behind a wheel. He's not.
Yeah, he's always
not driving.
No, I think he's parked.
Good.
But I'm pleading with devotees, please. I'm no one to ask devotees to do or not to do something, but I'm pleading with each and everyone to at least today refrain from asking questions on Srila Prabhupada's departure, please. Hari Chakra. Unmute.
Hare Krishna, Mother. Thank you very much, Mother, for your inspiration and good advice that always enliven us. My question is, I don't even know if it's a direct question, is that you see, basically when I realized that, like even in regular life, if people are sent to the prison and they are somehow or the other given the hope that this is a place for you to reform, and that if you are able to show some sort of remorse and be able to reform, we can even pardon you so that you can get out of here even earlier than you are supposed to be. Now, when we bring it to our in our philosophy or in our Krishna consciousness practice, sometimes we make it look as if this material world we are here and it's like such a horrible place. There is nothing that we can do, and I mean so many things that actually is like if you are not careful, it will so dampen your spirit that then you begin to think, oh, then why am I struggling? Let whatever happens. Unlike when we are taught, if we are being encouraged that, look, this is a training ground. It's not a place to just kill us, but it's a training ground where we have been given the opportunity to learn our lesson properly so that we can be pardoned and taken out of here and go back home, back to God. So this issue of always, a couple of devotees that I've heard them speak, who make it sound so like horrible that to be in this world. How do you advise her on that?
Well, on the one hand, if everybody's saying it's a great place to be, why would we want to get out? But I understand what you're saying. And I think it's very clear from Prabhupada's teachings that we do have to get out. And he's given us the way. It's not a depressing, it's not a depressing arrangement. Dancing, chanting, and feasting, that's our basic program, Of course, the catch-22 is we've got to chant offensively, that we only honor Krishna Prasad, and we dance the dance of we dance in for the pleasure of Krishna, not for the pleasure of our senses. That was the point. Narada said that those who are always full of cares and anxieties due to desiring contact with the senses and their objects, they can get out by following the constant chanting of the transcendental activities of the personality of Godhead. So we have a path out, we have the exit. I don't think that's depressing. I think it's very hopeful.
Yeah, thank you, Mata. Yeah, the reason why I was asking this question is about, you see, like during your lecture when you were talking about how even Mother Kunti was pleading to Krishna that Krishna should help her to get out of the family attachment.
The limited attachment, but to broaden, this is the point that when you get out of this limited family, you broaden your attachment by including all, by including all living entities.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
It's not that there's no affection. Affection is there in Krishna, and Krishna consciousness is based on affection, but a broader affection.
Hare Krishna, thank you so much. Govinda Prabhu, please, you may unmute.
Hare Krishna, Mataji, please kindly accept my respectful obeisances.
Hare Krishna.
All glories to Srila Prabhupada, all glories to Srila Bhattacharya Maharaj, and all glories to the devotees. My question is...
Prabhu, Mother wants to be sure whether you are packed.
Yes, I'm packed.
Okay, good.
Yes, I'm packed. I slept here last night, so I'm still here. Yeah.
You slept in your car?
Yes, it's a truck. It's a semi-truck.
Oh,
yes.
Okay.
Yes, semi-truck. I have a bed, everything inside here.
Okay.
Thank you. Yeah, Martha, my question is about, you see, I was so touched when you mentioned that one thing that Srila Prabhupada said about the emergency situations of a devotee's passing away. It may seem very unpleasant way of passing, but if a devotee is very sincere and has given up all his sense gratification and giving himself fully to Krishna service, at that point of departure, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu himself will come and rescue such a devotee. I was so touched. Relating that to Parikshit Maharaj, Parikshit Maharaj was lucky to be in the midst of devotees hearing Bhagavatam at his last days, and then he passed away like that. You see, we are all kind of in the same situation of Parikshit Maharaj, because we can be bitten by the snake of death at any time. And so
Yeah,
therefore,
you're driving a semi. It could be anytime.
Anytime. It could be anytime.
Anytime anybody gets into a moving vehicle.
Yes.
No.
It can be anytime. And so
So I'm sure you're always listening to kirtan and classes, right?
Yes, I'm listening to kirtan and classes, and I'm enjoying. Actually, I have my Krishna consciousness here. I love this job. So how do we have such a emergency mindset? We may not be in Bhagavatam class, we may not be in an association of devotees, but the snake of death may bite us anywhere, anytime. How do we have just such an emergency consciousness?
By understanding the reality of the material world. Death may come at any time. That's all. It seems to me like you're doing the right thing. You're in a situation where we're all in a situation. Death may come at any time. We know that, but we don't always act upon that knowledge. But you're listening to classes, kirtans, etc. Just have to keep ourselves prepared.
Thank you so much, Mother. I think Mother Rajalila has a question. Please, you may unmute, Mother.
Thank you. Thank you, Sahadev Prabhu. Thank you, Saha. Malati Prabhu, I just thought I'd take this opportunity for a clarification, given that you're talking about death can come at any time. And given that you personally served Srila Prabhupada, I believe it was on this forum, there was a question, and please excuse me, their organizer Sahadev, for diverting a little bit. However, I'm asking Malati this question because, as we all understand, that death can come at any time. So Malati Prabhu, there was a discussion on this forum about Srila Prabhupada calling the women Prabhus. And
yes,
somehow that conversation, ended up with some, I believe, it's appeared to me that there's a little bit of confusion around this. So would you kindly share with us your personal experience of Srila Prabhupada?
Yes, actually, I can even send documentation, which includes my personal experience. But at a certain point, and this was quite early on, he told us, all of us, that we should address one another as Prabhu. He wasn't talking to the men, he was talking to devotees, men and women, devotees. And then he said that Prabhu means master, not that you become master or you think you're the master, but you think like this of the person you're addressing. And actually, that's what we were doing. We all did like that. We didn't think it was strange. We didn't think, oh, this is a male term, a Sanskrit male term. We just didn't come into our purview. So we had that mood of addressing one another, initiated or non-initiated. Srila Prabhupada, I think you can see this. I can send you documentation. Just give me an email address. Anna Prabhu. Anna did become Annapurna, but Anna Prabhu. He called Vishaka Jean Prabhu. It was on her wedding day And he goes, oh, where is Jean Prabhu? I was there. I was present for this. So we have the enlightened people now, the so-called more enlightened people. Oh, well, this was a male term. That was one of the brilliant things about Srila Prabhupada. He could disregard such mundane attributes, male, female terminology, and stick to a very essential point that we should see each other as Prabhu. And then it was such a nice mood. It created a nice mood. And I mean, to this day, Prabhupada disciples among ourselves, we are like that. And I feel that Prabhupada did not make a mistake, as some people say. One person, a saintly god brother, I guess he's saintly. So we were having this conversation on email. And I gave him the example, so then he couldn't deny it anymore. And he goes, well, I guess he digressed once or twice. I mean, what do you say to such a person? I just ended the conversation there. You know, I just didn't respond. And you can see how far things have gone, where they reject Prabhupada's own words. Because it's in writing. There's a purport even you can find this. He's instructing to address each other like this. He didn't say, I'm instructing the men. Now Prabhu has become, within ISKCON, a word for man. The Prabhu's over there, the Mataji's over there. Like, what is this? It's not that we want to be Prabhus, we want to be servants. And it's a very nice way of instilling that mood.
Thank you,
Well,
Krishna.
thank you so much. So if I'm understanding this, I mean, personally, I've asked this question before, and I asked this question to a guru, and the answer I received was, yes, women can be addressed as Prabhus, because Prabhu simply means master. And it is not the same as Das and Dasi. Those Das is masculine, Dasi is feminine. But Prabhu is not for masculine or feminine. It could be either, it could be both. So thank you for sharing that with us, Mother Malati. I think we have a question from His Grace, Srimad Varaha.
And as I said, if anybody wants the documentation, I'm more than happy to share it. It was compiled by Her Grace Vishaka Devi Dasi, who's one of the most astutely centered, Shastric-centered persons in our society.
Yeah. Srimad Varaha Prabhu, please, you may unmute.
Hare Krishna, Dandava Pranam, Mother Malati.
Hare Krishna.
Obeisances to all the devotees on the forum. It's not a question per se, but just some comment on Govinda Prabhu's question about the emergency mood, how to keep the emergency mindset. Because this, particularly, I like this emergency mood that is in that spirit that most of us join ISKCON. And I believe we have to keep that, we need to keep that spirit to remain. So the question kind of touched me when he asked, how do we keep the emergency mood? And I want to humbly say here is that we keep the emergency mood when we remind others. Anything we learn, when we remind others about it, we remind ourselves. So I think the best way to keep the emergency mood is to preach. When you preach to somebody about Krishna and you remind him about the goal of life, you are reminding yourself. And as much as we do that, then we can affect the total mindset of the world. But the less we do that, then the preaching mood drops, and then people relax back into their, comfort zone of material enjoyment. So I want to just add this humbly that I believe that the more we develop the spirit to preach and to remind others about what we have learned, we also remain in that mode of emergency, the urgent mode. Well, so please thank you very much for giving me the opportunity. Hare Krishna.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, His Grace Srimad Prabhu. So anyone else with any question or comment?
I would just like to make a comment that
Please do.
one of the things that I appreciated by Srila Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj was his urgent attention to Krishna consciousness and delivering it to all people.
Yeah. Yeah, thank you
I
so
mean,
much.
nowadays, many people that come to Krishna consciousness, it's Sahadev, I see your message. If you could send me your address on WhatsApp, because these messages disappear as soon as the thing is over.
Okay, I'll do that. Okay.
Yeah. I forgot what I was
Thank
saying.
Now you were talking about His Holiness Bhaktivedanta Swami Maharaj and how he took Krishna consciousness very urgent.
Yes, I mean, look.
And there are others who are joining now in a different mood. That's where it stopped.
Okay.
Others are joining now in different mood.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Okay. So yeah, it's like a, it's a part-time hobby. Krishna consciousness is almost like a part-time hobby. Whereas those of us who came in Prabhupada's time and shortly thereafter, this was our life. And everything was directed in this direction, So whether or not we were successful or not, but the attempt and the necessity of making Krishna consciousness foremost was and is still there. And some of us see, okay, we're not immediately pure devotees and et cetera, but it doesn't mean we give up. It means we just keep on pushing ourselves.
Mother, don't you think part of the reason why some of us are kind of lousy or whatever, I don't know if it's the proper word to use, but is that like Srimad Prabhu was saying, lots of us are no more in that pioneering spirit. We don't have that pioneering spirit in us anymore. Unlike those who started it with Srila Prabhupada, I asked His Grace Mahatma Prabhu, who was on our platform some time ago, and I asked him this question, and he said lots of things he did when he newly joined the movement, he's wondering if he's asked to do them today, if he will be able to do them. But those days he did them with, like Srila Prabhupada would ask his disciples to do. I think you were the very person who was sharing with us how Srila Prabhupada sent Brahmananda and one other devotee to, I don't know whether it's Pakistan or somewhere, and it was on the news that some Hare Krishna people.
I mentioned that.
Yeah, and these devotees, even though they knew the risk, but they just went. And it's so difficult to find such dedication these days. I mean, it's still there, but I don't know. Of course, Srila Prabhupada is Srila Prabhupada, so he carries special.
Anyway, we shouldn't allow doubts to deter ourselves, and things will apparently look different today, but that's where this determination, enthusiasm, and patience comes in. No, I'm not going to live in a cardboard box this now, but I did that when we were opening London. There's so many things, some things I can't even tell you. that we did to further this movement. I won't do them now. I physically couldn't even do many of them now. But it doesn't mean that we don't push ourselves anyway.
Yeah.
The effort may appear a little different, but the effort is what is the important thing. The determination.
Yeah. Wow.
And there has to be compassion. If we don't have compassion for fallen and conditioned souls, including ourselves, no, we're not going to be making much of an effort. Why should we?
Yeah.
But if we actually see the deplorable condition of the fallen and conditioned souls, and we don't feel sorry for them and don't feel the need somehow or other to just do something, this was what the whole book distribution is about. It's not about numbers. It's about giving out the sublime spiritual knowledge and information that actually can save a person's life. You know, nowadays people speak saving lives, and like there's this amazing airplane pilot. He just took off from LaGuardia Airport, and then suddenly the plane lost the power or something. It was coming down, and he couldn't get back to LaGuardia, and he had to land this big, huge plane in the East River in New York. And
Yeah.
somehow he did that, and he got everybody out of the plane, and not one. And it's in January; it's freezing cold. They could have froze to death, and he saved everybody's life. I mean, not everybody's going to have such a dramatic situation. And he was carrying it to save their lives. So we should also care to save lives, but we're not going to do it in that way.
Mm.
But hey, getting out there and offering a book, offering prasadam, offering the mantra, which is something we can do. Make some little effort. It won't always be a front page effort. It probably never will, but that's not the point.
Yeah. Oh man, thank you so much. Harichakra Prabhu, please remain mute.
And we also have to have compassion on ourselves. It's not just an external thing.
Hare Krishna Mata, thank you very much. And based on the question, what I'm going to say is based on the question Mother Rajalila asked and the answer you gave, very clean, clear answer. That you see in their in African culture, like especially in the Akan culture in Ghana, there's a story that one time a great king came up, and the king said, everybody should kill your mother. He told everybody to kill the mother. So people started killing their own parents. And one guy, he sneaked his mother and hid the mother in the forest. And so every day he would sneak away and go and feed the mother. Then at a certain point in time, the king said, okay, now we want to build a big palace. So I want everybody to come, all the architects and everybody come. But this palace, I want us to build it from up down. He doesn't want to build it from the foundation up. He wanted to build the palace from up down. And people should bring the ideas. If you come and you don't give the right idea, he kills you. So everybody was scared. And this guy who hid the mother in the forest, he sneaked out one night and went to the mother and said, this is the dilemma we are in. This is the situation. What do we do? And the old lady said, okay, go back and tell the king that it's our custom that anytime we begin to build something like a palace, or the king is supposed to lay the first brick in the foundation. So if the king wants you to build it from up down, then he should be the first person to lay the first roof. Then you continue from there. So the guy came, he went, and in the presence of everybody, he brought this out. Then the king sat down very quietly and eventually said, okay, I have abandoned this project, because he knew he could not start it. So the king asked him, well, who gave you this intelligence? And he said, well, when you asked us to kill our parents, I hid my mother. So I went to see my mother, and she gave me that advice. So in the African culture, anytime there is a case, even in the palace, and something becomes very difficult.
Chakra, sorry, you got muted. Your phone got you muted. Unmute. You get into this next part of the story.
Yeah, it was like right at the.
Hello?
Yes,
Yeah.
now
Can
we
you hear
can hear you. Yes.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yeah, we can
Yeah,
hear
yeah.
you.
But we didn't hear the part we needed to hear.
Yes, we did it. Okay. Go on, we can hear you.
Who is? Hello?
He's leaving us hanging.
Hello,
Yes.
can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you, Hare Chakra Prabhu.
Okay. So he said, so anytime there is something going on, even in the palace, and they come to a place where they cannot decide, they say, let's go out and go and consult with the old lady. And that has become a custom in the Akan language now. So what I'm saying here is that the reason I told this story is that based on the question Mother Allah asked you and the answer you gave, and you are even ready to give us documents if we want documentation. So I'm pleading with you, Mata, I'm pleading with you, don't leave us alone. Always be with us so that we can be consulting you
Hare
to
Krishna.
know where to take things.
Hare
Please,
Krishna.
I'm begging you. I'm begging
It could
you.
be
This is
that could be a little dangerous
don't leave
sometimes.
us alone.
I'm in a
Always
fiery
be-
mood. I'm in a very fiery mood these days, so be careful what you ask me.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think we'll be ready for the fire.
But
Hare
thank you
Krishna.
for that. Thank you for the question. It's more than just the terminology. It's much bigger than that.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
the point there. Actually, I have. I was supposed to do something with another devotee at noontime.
Oh, okay. Thank you so much. But we
So-
had one last question from, I think, Kavira. If you may take that, and that will be the last one.
Not noontime at 11. Yeah, go ahead. That's
Yes.
okay. I'm already
Please.
late.
Yeah,
No,
please
no,
ask-
sorry,
Oh, no.
it wasn't from Ekavir Prabhu, and I
Okay,
just,
please go ahead.
it wasn't a question. I just want to share with Malati Prabhu about this point she made about self-compassion, and especially for devotees that think that the only way to preach is to go out and distribute books or, do Harinama. Those are definitely ways, foundational, that are important. However, I want to just appreciate Sahadev Prabhu for him doing this preaching that he's doing right now, coming home from work, working all night long, and being able to support people to listen to hear Bhagavatam. And that is preaching. So thank you. Hare Krishna.
No. Mother, if I knew this is what you were going to say, we wouldn't have let you in here. But there are many other devotees doing much more than what I'm doing. I just happen to have little love seeing the faces of the devotees. That's all it is. But thank you so much.
Thank you, and Salika Prabhu. Salika also.
Yes.
Thank
Hare
Haribol.
Krishna. Hare
Thank you,
Krishna.
Malati Prabhu.
Terrible. So, dear devotees, please kindly unmute and then we all chant the loudest Hare Krishna Maha Mantra to express our appreciation to our revered speaker, Grace Mother Malati. Jai.
Hare Krishna,
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna,
Hare
Krishna,
Hare
Krishna, Hare Rama, Hare
Rama, Hare Hare.
Anam Pavanendayo,
Thank you, Mata. Thank you.
Oh, Haribol, Haribol. Thank you all
Haribol.
very much.